This video is going to be a review on a new or relatively new listing software called Accelerlist. The title of my review is Has a New King of Amazon Listing Software Arrived? And by the end of this review, hopefully you will have an opinion on whether that is the case one way or the other. So we'll start with what is Accelerlist. Listing the manual way through Seller Central or doing it without a software is a big chore. Most third-party sellers are using some listing software of some kind. So what makes Accelerlist unique is a few different things. So the main difference between Accelerlist and other third-party listing software is that Accelerlist supports multiple workflows. For instance, batch listing or speed listing versus precision listing. So that means whether you list your items one by one, choosing a price, a condition as you go along, or whether you prefer to do more of a batch style of match listings or speed listings, which is where you set a default value for your list price, your condition, how much you spent for the item. And then Accelerlist will basically just go through it one by one. You don't have to enter in anything past those default values. Okay, so that's what's called the speed listing mode. And they're both very different, but they're both very useful. And as a reseller, I've had the need to use both. Putting Accelerlist to the test. So I kind of tried Accelerlist on a whim. I was having issues with Inventory Lab, which is somewhat of one of the more used products on the market for listing, and I was having some problems, and they were getting to become pretty problematic for my business. So I kind of tried it on a whim, and one of my very first shipments was something of a monster shipment consisting of hundreds and hundreds of items. So this was quite a test for the software. And this happens to be something Inventory Lab has been struggling with, seems to me, ever since they added their box content solution over a year ago. And that seems to be when it started. So to start with Accelerlist is very simple. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through this article here that I wrote out just to kind of have a overview for this video, and I'm going to tab back and forth from the software so you can actually see the software in use. So this is Accelerlist. This is the main page, and to create a batch is super simple. So this is the main screen. You're going to want to go to New Batch up to the top left. You're going to want to give it a name. So I'm just going to give it a name here. I'm going to do the date, and I'm going to say books. SKU prefix, I'm just going to put JBZ1. I'm going to put. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything specific. That's just the SKU prefix, just for demonstration purposes. You can put a lot of different things here. For channel, I'm doing FBA, so I'm going to pick that. Workflow type, I'm going to pick live. That is what I prefer to do because I like to list one by one, label my items, and put them in the box. Who labels? I always pick merchant, which means I label it because I think it's very quick. It's very easy. The cost of labels is cheap. And I think to have Amazon do it is rather expensive. So I'm going to do create batch. And it's that simple to create your batch. I did have an address put in there, so you have to set your address. But other than that, everything is pretty much straightforward. So this is the main screen. This is where you're going to list your items. So this is very, very simple. You have two modes. There's precision and speed. Precision is similar to the Inventory Lab way of listing, if you want to call it that, where it's live, it's as you go, you see the pricing data, you choose your condition, you price it, and then you list it. Okay. Speed is the opposite of that. In speed, you set a bunch of defaults. And once you set your defaults, it will use those values for everything you list. And then you can have like a repricer come in and fix everything afterwards. It's very quick. So that's if you just want to get stuff listed and sent out, you want to use the speed workflow. And I have used both thoroughly so I could do this review properly. So once you create the batch, you can set some defaults before you even set whether you want to list speed or precision. So for example, right now I'm on precision. I can set the buy cost. I can set the list price, the quantity, the condition. I can set these things, even in precision mode, I can set all these defaults. So you can use both. Now, here's another thing that I think is very good. When you hit advanced presets, you can set a minimum allowed price and a maximum allowed price. And if you've ever used a repricer, or if you even ever just, say you had an item that was priced really high, or you had an item priced really low, Amazon will kind of take it upon itself to disable your listings. Like it thinks you made a mistake, and a lot of the time you didn't make a mistake. It was something you legitimately meant to do. And by having these set here, you will never have that happen. And that's really, really helpful, especially for people that use a repricer after and set a high price for, default, like say $500, and their repricer comes in and then sets it to something reasonable. Having these to set here is really great, so I'm glad they added that, because I've never had an issue with disable listings since I've been using this. So we're going to start with precision mode. So you have individual control over each item's condition note, listing price, actual condition, whether it's good, like new. You have control over all these things in precision mode as you go, as you list. So this is the ideal method of listing and pricing that I teach in my Book Selling 101 course, and many other situations. And this style is very similar to Inventory Lab style of listing, if you happen to be coming from that software. And that's actually the software I used to use and recommend before using Accelerlist, and that might be a bit of a spoiler here, but that is definitely the case here. So precision mode is very simple. You have individual control over every single item you list. Precision workflow involves two very simple steps. It involves grading, and you can see the grading screen here. This is what the grading screen looks like. And then the second step is pricing. So let's go into it just like we're going to list a book. So I have my barcode scanner hooked up. So I'm going to scan this book right here. You can see I scan it in. It comes up. Accelerlist is looking up the item. It brings it up really quickly, and it's saying that I already have this in my inventory, so I'm going to hit list with new SKU really quickly. You can see this is very quick. It brings it up. It gives me the rank. It gives me the category, the ASIN, so it gives me a lot of important information right off the bat. And it's asking me condition. So again, this is the first phase, grading. What's the condition of the book? So I'm going to pick use like new, and now you pick a condition note. I'm going to pick like new plus. And I'm going to hit finish grading. Once you do that, you can see very quickly, that's what I like about this. Even in precision mode, it's very quick. It gives you the pricing info. So it gives you the new prices, the used prices, and the FBA prices. However, if you want the live data, in other words, if this is not enough to make your decision, you can hit this little Amazon button right here. It brings up a new screen, and very easily you can make a pricing decision based on this information here. So I'm going to say that I'll price this at, first I'll put a buy cost. I'll put $1. I will put a list price. I'll put $9.95 just for demonstration purposes. You can see it lists right here your net profit, your return on investment for what you paid for it. So we're going to put $9.95, add item to batch. And it kind of loads a little bit, it does its thing, and your item is listed. So this is the very first item I'm adding to the batch, and just like every other listing software, it lets you know that, hey, this is where it's going. So mine's going to ABE8. I'm going to hit approve. ABE8 is really close to me, so I'm always happy to see when things go there. And here it is, it's listed. So really easily, I just listed a book, and now I can go on to my next book, and I can list a book, a similar way. So let's list one more book using precision workflow, this time without, so much talking and explaining, so you can really see kind of the workflow, how long everything takes, and get a little bit more of a better idea for it. So we'll list this book right here. I'm going to move through this a lot quicker than the last book. Very good condition, very good condition note. And we have some data here. I'm going to check the FBAs. Okay, so I'm going to list mine at $7.97. My buy cost, I'm going to set to $1. I'm going to hit add item to batch. And just like that, it adds it. Now you notice there's a little bit of a recurring theme here. I'm setting the buy cost to $1. That's usually my buy cost for a lot of books. So you could see here, I can actually set my buy cost right here as a default. So I'm going to set this to 1. And now every book that I list after this is going to have buy cost set to 1. So, that's really great that I can do that. Even in precision mode, I can set a lot of default values. So that's precision mode. You can see this is very simple. Now, something else I want to bring up, you can see it's also assigning these books to box 1. Now, I didn't particularly make a box or do anything manual or do any assignments. Acceleralist just knows that, hey, these are the first 2 items. They're going to go in the same box unless I tell it otherwise. I'm going to go into this more into the review, but this is very important, and this was a really big turnoff point for Inventory Lab for me. When they made their box content adjustments, you had to assign every single book you listed, or whatever you're listing, whether it's a book. I list a lot of books, but no matter what you're listing, you would have to assign it to a box every single time. And it's a lot more aggravating than it sounds, because you actually lose time twice. You lose time when you change it to the box you want, but then you lose time again because you have to put the mouse cursor focus back on the search bar before you scan your next item, or it won't come up. So it became very cumbersome. So I just want to point out how great this is, but again, we'll go into it more as the review goes along. So this is basically precision mode. I just went into it in a lot greater detail than the written article. So we'll get into speed mode now. Now, this is also known as batch listing or bulk listing. So speed mode, you set a default condition, you set a default condition note, and a list price. Now, there's other options too, such as quantity, supplier, buy cost, and even SKU prefix. But this mode is for quick listing. This is not for someone that wants to price each individual item, but they want to let their repricer do all that work for them. And this is the second workflow type of Acceleralist. So you're actually getting, it's almost like you're getting 2 listing softwares in one, because you never were able to do this, to my knowledge, before this came out. It was always one or the other. Software was good at one or they were good at the other, but you can never do both. So let's go over the speed workflow. And here's another thing that's cool. You can switch between the 2 workflows in the middle of a batch. So I don't have to create a new batch or start all over. I can switch to speed right now. I'll give you an example when you might use this. I mean, you could use this for all kinds of things, but let's say I have a stack of books, and let's say that I took the time to, pre-organize them by condition. It's not something I usually do, but it's one way of doing it that can speed things up if you're someone that doesn't like having to put in all the data for each one. So let's say I have a whole pile and they're all very good condition. So I change it to speed. I bring this over on the side here, and this is where I set my data. So buy cost 1, that looks good. List price, so I'm going to set it to $2.92. And it's a very specific number, because I can then go into my repricer and I can target only items that are that specific price, for it to go ahead and reprice those items before they hit the warehouse. So once they hit the warehouse, everything will be priced the way I want it to be. I don't want that to be something like 100 or something too common, so I pick kind of a weird number on purpose. So condition, we said we're going to do very good. Condition note, we'll put this one here, and minimum allowed price, maximum allowed price, we leave that the way it is. So I'm going to move on to another book here. All I do is take my scanner, I'm going to scan the barcode. Now watch this. This is very quick. This is a very quick way of listing. So if speed is your thing, the speed workflow is probably going to be something you like. So you can see this book is already listed. So all those screens I went through in precision mode, as far as the grading, as far as the price, those are all skipped completely here. You can see the price, $2.92. The quantity is 1. The condition and the condition note are exactly what we set in our defaults. And just like that, it's listed. I mean, you saw how quick that was. So you can see if you have a large stack of books, for instance, and you do have them pre-sorted by condition, this is a very quick way of listing. So, I'm really excited, actually. This is actually the first software I've used in a while that I've been this excited about. You can see that you can use both types of listing, and again, you can use it in the middle of the batch. You don't have to create a new one. You can change your mind as you go. Say you want to change over to precision versus speed. It doesn't matter. You can do it while you're listing, and it did its job. I mean, that's the bottom line. Is it did its job, and for a price that you're going to come to see is very almost hard to believe. So that's the speed workflow. So it works exactly as you would expect it to work. So once we go past the main listing features of the software, which is what it's designed to do, there's other things that it's capable of, such as accounting and reports and things like that. So Accelerlist has really good accounting features. It's very similar to Inventory Lab. For example, below is an inventory health screen. Shows some nice graphs, regarding sale data, even long-term storage info based on your current inventory. So, this is just a snapshot here. We've got, it says 944 SKUs. It gives your average sale price, sellable valuation. That's really good. It even breaks it down to your top 5 categories. You could see 99% books here. It gives you a sales rank breakdown. Gives you long-term storage program information. I think this is really awesome. So it shows you everything that is going to be charged fees for long-term storage. So you can go in and make those adjustments. Next in the review, what there really is kind of the elephant in the room here, is an inventory versus Accelerlist kind of comparison. And the reason why this is kind of important is because Inventory Lab's kind of been the standard of listing software. Due to its intuitive interface, its accounting features. But there's problems with Inventory Lab, and there are problems that even after 12 months have still not been addressed after I brought it up to their support. So I'm going to give you some reasons that I made the switch for good to Accelerlist, and why, if you haven't yet, I suggest you do. The first reason is more flexible workflows. So as a reseller, it's nice to be able to have the option to list in different ways. If I have a lot of books I need to go out quickly, I don't have the time to individually price them one at a time for whatever reason. Accelerlist gives me the ability to do that. So I could then go in, reprice later on my own if I want to go in Seller Central and do it manually, or if I want to use a repricer to get me at least 75% of the way there. Before Accelerlist, this really wasn't possible. You had to use multiple listing softwares to accomplish this. And to do that also comes with a high monthly bill. And there is an extended trial available to people that are either viewing this video or that are reading the blog post. With the link, I will leave it below in the description. It is also in my blog post. You get 3 weeks versus 2 weeks, but you get something even better that I'll go into later in this video. I think you're going to be really, really happy about what I was able to work out with the creators of Accelerlist. They've been very, very great to work with. Other than that, what are the other reasons I switched from Inventory Lab? This is a big one. Better implementation of box content information. So when box content information requirement was announced, it created a lot of unrest in the reselling world. What used to be really simple process, you box your items, you send them in, it became complicated. So a lot of changes would need to be made to the old implementations of listing software for it to be compatible. So Inventory Lab came out with their own implementation of box content information, and it did work. However, there was one really big flaw. Every time you listed an item or a book in live mode, which is the preferred method of listing for a lot of people, especially in the used book world, you have to set the box content for that individual book immediately after. This might sound like a minor thing, but when you're listing hundreds of books, this becomes an enormous headache. Even worse than that, after you set the box for that item, as I mentioned before, you would have to mouse back to the search box so that the next item you scan will register. Otherwise, nothing would happen. So it created 2 steps instead of 1 that were completely unnecessary as an end user. So I told Inventory Lab about this problem, and I told them about it in detail. This was almost 12 months ago, and to date, they still have not addressed these problems. So Excel lists box content information on the flip side of this, so they implemented it in their own way. In Excel list, you simply list the item, and the software will automatically assign it, as you saw in my demonstration, to the last box you used. And if you haven't used a box yet, it's smart enough to figure out, hey, this is the first item you're listing. This is obviously going in box 1. So this increases the efficiency by a very large margin because, as we all know, time is money. So I'll go into the box content info just a bit here. So for this last item we just listed, if I hit this button right here, so this is the box content info. So it's giving me the number, the quantity shipped. So let's say I'm out of room. I need to put it into another box. So I hit add box. It's very simple. It gives me the check mark that was successful. So I'm going to change this to 0 because I'm going to move it. I'm going to put 1 here for quantity, and it's that simple. And if I want to add a new box, then all I have to do is hit add box, and it'll create box 3. I hit add box again, it creates box 4, etc., etc. So I can go on as long as I want, as many boxes as I need. The software will let you move things around with really very little issue, which is really great. That's another perk that I did not put into the review, actually, was that not only is switching books or items from boxes or in between boxes very easy, but I also noticed that if I had to delete an item, let's say I put the wrong condition or there was something that I messed up and I had to delete it from here, all I had to do was delete it from Excel list. Now, that sounds like a simple thing, but in Inventory Lab, I would have to delete it from Inventory Lab, go into Seller Central, pull up that shipment, hit edit quantities, find the book, change the quantity from 1 to 0, hit the X. I mean, it was literally like 7 steps for me to simply delete an item listing in live mode using Inventory Lab. So, that's a really good plus of the software as well. So you could see that the box content implementation is really very good. It's really very well thought through. So I was really very happy with that. The next reason I switched from Inventory Lab was speed. So one of the issues I began having in Inventory Lab was with large shipments. So I would frequently list 300 books, as many as 800 books, even 1,000 books at a time. And the software would start slowing down really badly once you start hitting like 300-400, but it would start around the 200 to 250 mark. And then once you got to like 400, 500 listings, it basically became unusable. So what I mean is, when you finally put in all your information, you hit the button to list the item, it would sit and it would spin. And it would take, at its longest point, I think it could take up to 5 to 10 minutes per item just to list the item. That's when you start getting into 500-600 items. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's going to have to list this many items, but the fact that it was so fast in Excel list when I listed hundreds and hundreds of items with absolutely no slowdown, it really is impressive, and it speaks to the quality of the development and the developers that work on the software, that they were able to achieve this. Another reason that I made the switch was Excel list's desire to make improvements. So one of the things I've been most impressed with when I made the switch to Excel list was the creator's willingness to make the changes to the software. So no matter how good any software is, there's always changes that can be made, and the developers have been really great about implementing these changes. I can't say the same, unfortunately, about my experience with Inventory Lab. At some point, it almost seemed like they became too big for their own good. Problems that were really apparent to a lot of their users, they would be reported by more people than just me, and months would go by without any changes. I recommended some small changes to Excel list that were implemented in a matter of days. So Excel list is also really good for LTL shipping. So this kind of ties in with the speed heading previously mentioned in the article and in the video, because slowdown was so significant after a few hundred items that doing an LTL shipment was basically impossible. You were basically forced into listing box by box. And this has become somewhat of an unnecessary and wasteful norm, so to speak, for a lot of people in the used book world, simply because no better option was available until AccelerList. Finally, this is my last reason for switching, even though this is probably going to be the number one reason for a lot of people, is the price. Currently, AccelerList is at $29 a month. And for the functionality that they offer, it's an amazing deal. In comparison, Inventory Lab is currently priced at $49 a month. So this is a huge, huge savings. And for a piece of software that I personally feel is superior to what's already on the market, it's really an amazing deal. So for cons, so to keep the review unbiased here and completely fair, there is one thing that I think can be implemented a little more efficiently in AccelerList. Currently, AccelerList uses 2D barcodes to handle the box content information. This is a decent option given that the end user doesn't have to keep track of anything manually. They don't have to put any pieces of paper inside each box or anything like that. But I do feel that using Amazon Market Web Services, it's a method of doing this. I feel it's a better option. And basically, if this was implemented, the end user would not have to deal with even the barcodes. So as of right now, you have to put a barcode, you print it out, and you just tape it to the box. It's very simple. But if they implemented the AMWS method, everything would be handled electronically by the software. With that said, though, it's really not a deal breaker by any means. I mean, this pretty much amounts to what's essentially a minor issue. The good news is that I've been told they are currently working on getting this implemented. And I believe them because they've implemented things I've asked them to do in the past. So once they do, I will, of course, adjust the review. I will put some type of update in the description, in the comments, depending on when you're watching this. Make sure you look below to see whether this was implemented. Regardless, though, of when that happens, it's fully capable on its own. I mean, once they fix this whole cons section will be completely void of any content. And that's pretty impressive on its own. So as a conclusion, when I first started using AccelerList, I really wasn't sure what to expect, but I was tired of the issues I've been having with Inventory Lab, so I decided to take a chance with a new piece of software. The more I use it, the more I began to realize there was nothing missing in the software. It could do everything that I needed to do and then some, and it was cheaper. It had batch, it had speed listing, it had the precision listing, which is the list as you go workflow. It had the great visual reports and graphs on my inventory health, cost of goods, and things like that. And the ease of use and speed of the software itself was second to none. And again, the price is just so unbelievably low for this amount of functionality. I could finally say goodbye to Inventory Lab for good. There was nothing left that I needed that wasn't accounted for. So with that said, there is introductory pricing going on right now, and it is a limited time. So remember, AccelerList is relatively new. So I talked to Travis from AccelerList. I asked him if anyone who signs up could be grandfathered in at the $29 a month rate as long as they kept their subscription active. Now remember that the going rate for listing software at this time is about $50 a month and up. So this was a pretty big ask, but to my surprise, Travis assured me this was indeed the case. So for a limited time, anyone who signs up, say you try the trial, you find that it does meet your needs, you're going to be grandfathered into that $20 a month price. Even better if you use the link below. Again, whenever I offer an affiliate link or a link that benefits me in some way, I always try to reciprocate that with some value to the end user. So again, what I did was you get an extended trial. So you're not going to have to pay for the software for 3 full weeks. So instead of 14 days, you get 21 days. And you're not charged a dime until that point. You can cancel beforehand if you want to. It's really one of the best deals I've seen in a long time. And these guys deserve a lot of credit for this because they're really looking out for your best interest as a reseller and not just themselves. So I really appreciate that as someone that puts out content on my blog, on YouTube, my email list, because, it helps my viewers and my readers as well. So you can sign up for the free trial. I'm going to leave a link below. And, leave a comment on the video. Leave a comment on the blog post. Tell me what you think. This software I'm really very excited about this software. And like I said, it's the first software in a long time I've been this excited about. They've taken what have been so many very frustrating small problems that kept growing and growing. And then they implemented this whole other side of it, which with the batch listing, the speed listing, and really almost they're giving you two softwares in one, the way I look at it, plus an accounting side, so you can kind of look at it as three types of software in one, and it's very, very cheap. So definitely check this one out. I mean, if there's one piece of software I can say that is worth your time to check out, it's definitely this one. And this one really applies to so many people out there, so many resellers. Doesn't matter if you do books or arbitrage. It really doesn't matter what you do. If you sell on Amazon and you're serious about your business, chances are you're using a listing software. So this one definitely deserves your time. So give this a try. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you guys like this as much as I do, because I've made the switch, and a few people that I know, I've also talked to them. They've made the switch. They've been very happy with it. It just does what it's supposed to do. It does what it's supposed to do in multiple ways, efficiently, fast, with a really, really good box content information implementation. And it does it cheaper than the competition. I mean, you can't really ask for more than that. So I've been more than happy to do this review. I think they're great guys. I think if you have any issues with the software, they will listen to you as much as they listen to me. And that's important, because for so long, I feel like so many of us as resellers, we really have been kind of constricted on listing software. We haven't really had that many options. And now we have options. We have real competition, and we have what I feel is currently the best listing software on the market. So give this one a shot. Let me know what you guys think.